All right, so staff systems are currently client work, so it's actually the setup. So the staff system setup is the client work, and then once we get it set up, the system needs to be self-functioning and it won't be client work anymore because it'll be internal work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So once it is set up, it will just be internal operations work, right? But the setup, the actual investment of the setup, the time and energy it takes to get it set up is more, valuable and more expensive than the actual upkeep of the systems. So I just don't see it happening unless we budget client work for it. All right, so there's two sets. Actually, you could say there's three sets. We'll say three sets or tiers, right? Three sets of work. So the first is what we call the staff super system. So this is a single system that integrates the most essential components of staff support and accountability. So what you can think of it is if we successfully implement the staff super system, all work will be getting done. All, let's say, essential work. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, and like the whole goal here is to be getting all the work done and doing. This would include all the work coordination, all that stuff. So then you have like the top, what I would say the top 6 staff systems. So this would be like, focus on the processes for each of these top 6 staff systems. And then you have all of the staff system, which there's about 20 to 30 systems that all need to be coordinated to have successful organization, like successful and functional organization. So, and let's make sure it's clear this is an umbrella organization. So as we build this umbrella organization with 20 to 30 systems, when people come to us, this will be a service that we can offer. So we can offer to basically, outsource a successful staff model so that organizations function with a much easier success rate. So that's basically the bottom line here is we want to increase our probability of success. Like that's the whole goal. So increase our probability of success. All right, so do you have any questions off the bat? So there's the staff super system, there's the top 6 staff systems, and then there's all the other staff systems. So this one we're basically going to be waiting on, right? And right now we're going to be focusing on the top 6. And then as we build the top 6 systems and work out the processes for each system, we're going to be connecting and uniting them all together to create a single staff system. So this will come as we interconnect the top 6 systems, right? So right now we don't have a staff super system because we simply don't have the component parts yet, but eventually once we connect the top 6 systems together, it's all going to interlace into a single super system. There'll always be certain components of each of the top 6 that aren't part of the super system, but the overall super system will exist interdependently from the top 6 staff systems. Okay? So the most important part of each of the top 6 staff systems will be the super system. Right? It'll all be interconnected together into one single super system for the staff. So and then the super system will obviously be the top priority. But it's all but impossible to start focusing on the super system because it's kind of like when you're making cookies, you got to focus on your ingredients. You can't focus on the cookie, right? So only all the ingredients coming together from the top 6 staff systems will create the super system, all right? So our goal is the super system, but we have to focus on the top 6 systems in order to be able to pull all the ingredients together in order to make the super system, okay? That makes sense?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to get into the documents. So we're gonna have documents for each system, and we're gonna start with the top. There's going to be a staff systems doc. So I believe that this is linked into the systems doc. So if I go to our virtual drawer here. So I'm going to go into the systems and processes doc. Do you understand the difference between a system and a process?
Not much.
All right, let's just quickly review that. So a system is a set of processes that accomplish overall goals and objectives, including deliverables, right? So an example is the recruitment system is an example with the overall goal of having a active, trained, and effective workers accomplishing output. So the actual output of the recruitment system is the actual, trained worker. That could take many months to achieve that system. To achieve the overall deliverable, many processes and outcomes need to be successful over a very long period of time. Okay, so that's a system. A system really thinks more of a long-term perspective, and there's many processes and many outcomes to achieve a high-level accomplished output, like having a trained, effective worker who knows what they're doing, right? That can take many, many months, and many processes need to all come together successfully in order to have that outcome. A process is a are specific steps that accomplish a single goal with a clear step-by-step instructions. So an example within the recruitment system would be creating a recruitment budget or onboarding, that each process can always be active at the same time as other processes, even within a single system. So the idea here is that you can be creating a recruitment budget and you can be doing onboarding with existing recruits at the same time. But within the onboarding process, you need to do a specific step 1, step 2, step 3, and check off the list within the process. You can't, with most processes, you can't skip from step 1 to step 5 and be successful, right? The process is a very specific step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 within the process, whereas a system will have many processes which can all be congruent, or not congruent, but parallel to each other. So you can have simultaneous recruitment going on while building recruitment budgets and doing onboarding all at the same time, and that's all within a single system, even though those processes happen interdependently. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So really quick on the difference within a system, that you can have multiple processes and steps happening at the same time. Within a single process, each step must be completed before going to the next step, or you would have to go back to the previous step that you missed if you want to move on successfully, right? In other words, that there is only one single outcome to the process from the steps. But within a system, you can have multiple processes producing multiple parallel goals simultaneously. You can have sub-processes and umbrella processes, as well as subsystems and umbrella systems, which gives us a lot of flexibility. All right, so does that help a little bit in terms of systems and processes?
Yes.
All right, cool. So we're gonna go, so right now the other system that we've been working on is the budget system stock. It's coming together, but we're gonna skip that and go to the staff system stock. I'm gonna put that into our notes, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go into the staff systems doc, and we're gonna see what we got here. So the overall goal, so this is extremely important to having comprehension of everything. So the overall goal is to create a staff systems and processes, bylaws, constitutions, rules, etc., that are fully self-sufficient and functional within their own independently, right? So once our staff systems, I just copied and pasted what you're writing right now, right here on the bottom of the doc. Do you see it? Do you see what I copied and pasted?
You did not share your screen.
Oh, let me share my screen.
Yeah, I saw it.
You see it? Okay, cool. It came up. All right, great. So overall goal, again, is to create these staff systems that are, so that the staff are self-empowered with the processes, bylaws, decision-making, rules, to be fully self-sufficient, separate from me, separate from any particular organization, and separate from anyone else. Okay? Like that's the goal, is to be fully self-functional. And that's the idea of the system, is that it exists. We want to have staff be fully self-sufficient, most importantly that they are separate from individual people and based on systems, processes that are not dependent on any particular individual or organization. Right? So the staff will actually exist independently from organizations, and really think of it like a meta-organization. It's almost like an interconnected set of groups that are supporting the staff. One other way to do it is that it was going to have, we need an independent budgets. So currently all the funds are in RICO. Let's say, I disappeared or RICO, went out of business. That would be a major problem, right? So we need independent staff budgets that support the staff separate from RICO, right? So that's the goal, is that really this becomes interdependent and separate. This could happen, it's technically possible, within 6 months, 4 to 6 months could be possible to do it. But it could take years, could take years to achieve the final goal. All right, but anyways, it's technically, if we really focused on it and we've really pushed it forward, it could possibly be, 4 to 6 months, have full self-sufficiency. But it's also possible it could take many, many years for that to happen. All right, so the next part here is the staff system. So let's just jump to the top 6, okay? So we would call this the centerpiece of, like, the top 6 of the staff system. So we're going to take the 20 to 30 systems, and we're boiling it down to the top 6. So what that means is every single one of the 20 to 30 systems can all be integrated into one of these 6, right? And so these 6 systems, if they're functioning well, we will be an organized, functional team, right? Because if we miss one of these, everything falls apart, right? So of the 20 to 30 systems, even though those 20 to 30 systems are really important, some of those we can do without in the short term. Eventually, it would be a problem not to have them, but in the short term, it's not really going to do or die, right? So in the short term, these 6 are just like essential. Without these 6 happening every single month, everything falls apart, right? So for example, if we don't have a budget, it all falls apart. If we don't have onboarding and scheduling, people don't have a schedule, people don't know what they're doing, not going to work. If we don't have recruitment and we're not bringing new people in to be able to do the work that other people can't do, everything falls apart. So we actually need team members. We need staff to be recruited. We need to budget them. We need to onboard and schedule them. We need to make sure that all the workers are coordinated and have clear assignments, and then eventually move towards self-driven responsibilities. And we need to make sure that all the workers have training, have their questions answered, and we actually are building our team and building team development. And then obviously we have to do payroll and make sure people get paid or they're going to leave, right?
Yeah.
So those are the 6 top, staff system priorities in order to be running. So what we want is we want all 6 of these to happen basically extremely efficiently, right? So our goals for all 6 of these systems is efficiency, simplicity. We want to be able to make it accessible to all workers so that everyone is knowledgeable, right? So we want knowledgeable and easy to train. So that includes like, clear training models, steps, so that it's just, so that, and basically the bottom line is we want to know that all of this work will get done with minimal impact on our other priorities, right? So eventually, if we get these 6 things so perfect, so organized, so clear that they just happen, it's almost like they happen automatically, right?
Yes.
So think about it like when you're a super trained athlete. So super trained athletes, right? Like a tennis player or a soccer player or a football player. It's like when you see a super trained athlete, it looks effortless, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they put in so much work and so much training that when they go and they're running through the field and kicking the ball and in the ball, that it looks like they're not even trying. But really, it's because they put in years and years and years of training and effort. So that's the goal with these 6 super systems, is that we train and we plan and we coordinate them, and we break it down to such detail that we know it's going to get done, and so we don't even have to think about it, right? So the goal is that all our recruitment, our budgets, our onboarding, our signing, assignments, and coordination, training, and payroll just all are automatically happening all the time, and we don't even have to worry about it, and so that we can focus on the work. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is basically the goal. And then eventually what's going to happen is these 6 are going to be all interconnected into a 7th. And the 7th is going to be the super staff system, right? So the staff super system will be all 6 of these together, which will create a 7th layer. We can also call it the 0. Number 0 would be the super system. Okay?
Yeah.
And the staff super system will be all of these 6 components, but put together in a way where they're all interrelated and interconnected. So each of these 6 systems will exist interdependently, but there's going to be certain components that are all integrated into a single super system. And the focus is all going to be on the recruitment, because the goal is that when a person comes in, that they're immediately supported and integrated from the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
So the focus of the staff super system is on recruitment, because the goal is that we can work with a brand new recruit and get them at the highest level as quickly as possible. So the more we can support and help our new recruits, the more we can help existing workers as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the overall picture of what staff systems are and how they're important. The only other thing I'm not really going into that takes a lot more explaining is the idea of decision-making bodies and staffing organizations and staffing boards. But we'll get to that in the future.
So for this to happen, what's next should we do? Or for now, because we are focusing on our stop and hard stop priorities.
Well, the hard stop and soft stop priorities would be part of number 4, our worker coordination. Right, so if you see here at the very top, I have the priorities overall. So our priorities are FQN management bylaws and standing rules. So this is really important, which includes our main sessions and, you know, co-chairs, you know, who's responsible for what. If we don't have that together, we're not good. And then our worker coordination systems are hard stop, soft stop coordination, and then our recruitment, right? So once we get our recruitment and our hard stop, soft stop coordination together, our worker coordination system should be pretty good. And then the last is the work session standing rules. We need to make sure that when people come to work sessions, that those work sessions are organized and the work is actually getting done. So if we can accomplish these 3 priorities, I feel like we will be in a much better shape than we are currently. And that includes the hard stop, soft stop coordination. Okay?
Yeah.
So I guess you could consider some of the hard stop coordination setup as, you know, part of the staff system setup, but and we also need to do the recruitment setup and getting all the recruitment organized. All right, so this is all setup, right? Setup and review and evaluation and updating, right? And that's what this is. This whole thing is it's the staff system setup. Once we have the staff system set up, they should be able to run as part of our internal operations. But if we don't have them set up correctly, it's just not gonna work, you know? And right now what the problem is if you look at the 6, if you look at these 6 top priorities for the different systems, right now the way we look at them is they're all separate. We do payroll separately from recruitment, which is separate from budgeting, which is separate from onboarding, which is separate from our worker coordination, which is separate from our training and team development, right? So it's all fragmented, you know, and it's very hard to train anyone on all workers need to know all 6 of these, right? And they all need to be as self-sufficient as possible. So this is really what it comes down to, is how do we make sure that all of these are fully self-sufficient and fully self-organized and distributed and happening on a regular basis, and they're all happening at the same time. And ideally what's going to happen is when we start training workers on the super system, we're going to do one set of training where they learn everything all at once, and then they'll do separate trainings on each of the branches of the recruitment, the budgeting, the onboarding, assignments, and training and payroll, right?
Yeah.
So, but we want to give them like an overview first so that they understand the interconnectedness and they can get like the super system, like what is the most important thing of recruitment, the most important thing of the budgeting, the most important thing of onboarding, the most important thing of your work coordination and training and payroll. And we can just take that little bit of each of these 6 and train all at once so that people understand how to function as a worker, right? The goal is to have effective workers, and that's us all working as a team. And if all 6 of these things are fragmented and separate, then that creates a lot of problems and it wastes a lot of time, right? So if you can connect everything together, we should be able to save a lot of time and be much more efficient in making sure that the minimal basic necessities for running our staff systems is happening. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So unless you have any other questions, the next step for me would be just to review the bigger picture of the staff systems and the staff systems doc, and then we're going to go into what some of the actual work would be. Okay?
Yes. Just a question. Can we do this for these 6 to work? I think we need like also if we have 6 people who are responsible for every like if it is a budget, we need to have a person who is just focusing on budget and make sure our budget is clean. And okay, I think if we can have such, then we are going to be okay. I don't know.
Well, yeah, when we do need a budget coordinator, that would be great. But one of the things that you're missing here is this part. The overall goal is to create staff systems and processes, bylaws, and rules that are self-sufficient and function on their own independently. Right? To have staff be fully self-sufficient, and most importantly, that they are separate from any individual person based on the systems and processing. So there's no question that we want to have a budget coordinator, right? It's good to have someone coordinating the budget. But what I'm trying to say is I'm actually going beyond that, where we want to make sure that every single worker is trained on the minimum necessary for a successful budget so that you don't need a budget coordinator, because the budget will happen anyways as long as all of the workers do the minimum necessary for the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did not mean the coordinator. I mean anyone that can know how to work on that, not a coordinator.
Well, that would be the responsibilities. Okay. Right? That we would want someone to take on, like basically think about right now, like with the budget, right? Maybe the budget has 5 to 15, or let's say 10 to 15 responsibilities to accomplish the budget, right?
Yeah.
We want to simplify that to three, let's say 2 to 3 responsibilities. Right? So if we can downsize the budget to 2 to 3 responsibilities, that these 2 to 3 responsibilities that'll be part of the super system, right? It doesn't get rid of the 10 to 15 responsibilities, but if we can just do these 2 to 3 responsibilities and we can train every worker on how to do them, then everybody will be able to do the budget, and then it will create a super resilient model and system so that the budget's always getting done, because every single worker will be trained on the minimum necessary to make sure the budget happens. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it should be really, really simple and clear on how to do that. All right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So but it would still be good to have a budget coordinator, because the budget coordinator or the budget manager would be the manager to make sure the work is happening, right? So the management is a whole nother level. And we are going to build here. Let me just go over. Do you have any other questions or comments?
No, I have no question. We cannot have a budget coordinator. Maybe we can just have a coordinator that coordinates the staff system.
Or coordinates the what?
Staff system, like top 6 system. Can have a coordinator that coordinates.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. Because the goal here is that we're going to be simplifying all 6 of these systems, and by simplifying and interconnecting them together, you may be right. We might be able to have one person be able to oversee all 6 of them instead of having 6 separate people overseeing it independently and fragmenting and separating it all, right? I mean, these all need to happen together. We need to be able to recruit, budget, onboard, assign, train, and pay people. And it needs to be efficient, effective, boom, 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 so we can get focused on our priorities and the work. Right? Because right now it's like, oh, we want a budget. Oh, it's going to take us, 3 hours every single main session, month after month. And we still don't get a budget completed. That's very good, right? That's a huge problem. And then it's like, oh, you want to put recruitment on top of that? We don't even have time to talk about recruitment, let alone to get anyone even working on it. So the only recruitment that's even happened in the last 6 months, I did by myself, right? You talk about onboarding, scheduling. We're still struggling trying to get our schedule set up, right? Our worker coordination, obviously, we're working on it this week, but we need to do more. But, we're trying to get our soft and hard stops coordinated, but we're obviously on major soft stops and hard stops, so it's a big mess. Training, questions, team development, obviously we need to get better at that. And our payroll is way behind, always way behind. So, as you can see, each one of these is fragmented. Each one's seen as its own separate thing. and they are all not doing good. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what's really cool about...
Can you charge your machine? Is low.
Oh yeah, I got it. I'm on it. Boom.
Okay.
Okay. So overall, we're working on all 6 of these things. They're just happening very disjointed and separated and disconnected, and it's just very inefficient, and it's really dragging us down, right? Like the budget, for example, it's so much work to try to get our budget organized because it's such a mess and people aren't really supporting it, that it pulls us away from everything else that we're doing. So if we can get all 6, I mean, the most important thing to realize is that nothing is going to work as a team unless all 6 of these happen very effectively and very efficiently every single month. Right? There's no possible way that we can be functional and be successful without all 6 of these. Like, we have to recruit, we have to budget, we have to onboard and do scheduling, we have to assign and coordinate the work, we have to train, answer questions, and build up the team, and we have to pay people. Right? Those 6 things must happen, and they must happen all the time. And they need to be like the back of our hand. Like, it just needs to be like everybody knows how to do these 6 things. Everyone knows how to make sure that it's going to happen, for not just for the team, but also for themselves, so that people are independently empowered, right? So I think that's a really important term. Independently empowered, right? So let's just think of that really quickly. So for recruitment, we can easily create a system where individuals can get involved in the organization, set up their own main buddy teams, set up their own budget proposals, so that they basically, we don't need to really do anything for them. They can do it on their own. As long as we have the training videos and the information they need, they can recruit themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then also, if we make it in the best interest of people who are coming involved to recruit more people, right, so that they can get more people in their buddies, and they can get, we could even give them bonuses for recruiting more people. Then you recruit one person, and instead they bring 10 people, and next thing you know, our work for doing recruitment is like less than a quarter of what it used to be, right? So you're creating a self-sufficient, self-driving recruitment model, so that the work that we have to do is minimal, right? The budget, for the budget, everyone creates their budget proposals. The budget proposals should be based on the work that people are doing. The more work people are doing, the more, the higher ranking in the budget they get. So the budget should be almost self-perpetuating, where the more people are helping support the budget and bringing in the money, the more that they can do work and increase their involvement. So the budget should be connected with the worker coordination, and then the onboarding and scheduling. It should just be clear, the team should be self-scheduling and educating themselves, and the training videos should all be there, so that the onboarding just happens automatically after they get budgeted, and then from there, the training really just happen automatically at our main sessions, and then the payroll should basically be self-driven. Like, if someone can input their own payroll systems and it's verified, then we can pay them. So if we can create a self-driven payroll system where each worker can input their own information into the payroll system, and then it only needs to be verified, and then we can basically click a button and get them paid and not have to worry about anyone else, then that would be a much better system. So the more it can be self-sufficient and self-driven, the better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So any other questions or thoughts before we can keep going?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Okay.
I have no question for now.
I totally forgot our time. We scheduled a half an hour to 45 minutes for this. Do you know how long it's been?
I don't know. We started at what time?
All right. Well, let's just do another 15 to 20 minutes. I'll do 17 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's review quickly the rest of the stuff, and then we'll go into the next steps and what we need to do. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So the most important system is the staff systems to get us functional. So in order to accomplish these priorities, we need to do the staff systems. We're also thinking about creating a Plasmo accountability reporting so that the staff oversight and have the staff systems be directly and interlaced with their own self-reporting so that the staffs can hold themselves accountable and to reduce the need of the management to oversee the staff, right? The goal is that the only way to truly have fully functional staff is that the staff hold themselves accountable. Because if it's always up to the management to hold the staff accountable, then it's going to cost way more money, less efficient, and it's always going to take longer, right? Whereas if we create a system where the staff hold themselves accountable and actually are self-sufficient, then the management role is reduced, right? So I don't know how to do this, but this is definitely, when it comes to Plasmo and our accountability commission, to actually build, because right now we have member accountability in Plasmo, we've got board accountability in Plasmo, we've got executive accountability in Plasmo, we have management accountability, but we don't have staff accountability. So the idea is to actually build in a direct feedback loop into the staff system so that the staff can actually hold themselves accountable and actually reduce the need for management, executive, board, and a membership level accountability. And it's like basically going direct to the source. If we can hold the staff directly accountable to themselves, it creates the ultimate self-sufficient accountability, right? So I don't know exactly how that's going to be, but basically, we're going to be building a whole, model of a self-functioning staff system where the staff are very empowered. Okay? So here's the most important staff functions. So we have client work and income. Without income and actual client work, there is no staff, right? We have no work, we have no money, it's done deal, right? So this is extremely important, and this is related to our worker coordination, right, and our assignments, right? So we need to assign ourselves client work and make sure that we're doing, prioritizing our income as part of our worker coordination. Investor relations, obviously we need investors, but this also relates to client work. I mean, it's basically a subset. If we can bring in investors, then we don't need as much client work, etc. Payroll, one of the top 6. Value tracking, super important, also part of payroll. Token and equity distribution, also part of payroll. Budgeting, one of the top 6. All right, so client work and income, so this is part of worker coordination. Main buddy team and POPs. So this is going to be part of recruitment, right?
Yeah.
Onboarding and scheduling is going to be one of the top 6. Assignments is part of worker coordination and assignments. Communications check-ins. So the communications check-ins is extremely important. It has to happen every week. This is also part of worker coordination. Decision-making is going to be part of our training, questions, and team development. So as a team, we have to be doing decisions, right? So that'll be part of our training and team development. Planning as well as part of our training and team development. Membership power distribution. That's going to be part of recruitment and onboarding, right? So we can put that in both recruitment as well as onboarding. So we need to empower our members as soon as they get involved immediately instead of waiting, right? Reporting and accountability. This would be part of reporting accountability. What did we say? I think it's part of worker coordination as well as payroll. I think reporting accountability needs to be part of our payroll as well. That we're paying people because they're accountable, yeah? But we're also going to put that into our training because we're accountable to each other. Worker coordination, it's one of the top 6. Documentation's super duper important. It's going to be part of our training as well as part of our onboarding. Worker organizing systems, this is part of worker coordination. Worker methods, work sessions. So work sessions would be our actual meetings, right? So we'll put that there.
Yeah.
And our main sessions, all of this is going to be part of our meetings and training. And our worker organizing systems and worker methods is going to be part of our worker coordination. System setup and maintenance. This would be part of our work, so it's also worker coordination. But it's also going to be our evaluation, right? So system setup, maintenance, and evaluation. So we're going to be doing evaluation during our main sessions. And last but not least, self-resilience, self-sufficiency, organizational assessments. So, and this is actually going to become its own project. Self-resiliency and self-sufficiency needs to be a project. So let's go ahead and add that right now so we don't forget. So we're going to call it resiliency. We'll put it under ours. Resiliency is good. Cool. Or say self-resiliency. Okay, so so those are all of the rest of the systems. The self-resiliency most likely is going to be part of training and onboarding. Because the whole idea of self-resiliency is through the training, right? It's a self-training, self-connecting communication model. So it's passed on from one worker to another. So these are all the components that must be overseen to achieve the goals. But we can downsize it to the top 6 because those top 6 really are an umbrella of all these other components. Okay? So do you have any questions about, and there's about 20 to 30 different components.
I don't have a question.
Okay, so let's keep going then. So the super system, obviously the centerpiece of the super system is these top 6, and then we're going to figure out how to interconnect them all together to simplify to make it all happen. So basically, by utilizing, the recruitment system to build the budget, we can simplify the budget. By utilizing our budget models to help with payroll and doing self-payroll and self-training and assignments in our onboarding process, we can simplify our payroll through our onboarding, and so it all can just interconnect together, right? So we want to make payroll part of our onboarding. We want to make onboarding part of our recruitment process so that everything is just simplified and interconnected into the entire, the entire idea of bringing in a new person and making sure that they're budgeted, onboarded, trained, assigned, and paid all within the same system. Okay? All right, and the recruitment's the focus because it's all about the worker. So whether we're talking about a new worker or an existing worker, it's the same thing. So the easiest way to think about it is like, here's your worker, right? Let's say they're brand new. Let's create a model where from the very beginning they're fully empowered and fully engaged and fully integrated into all of this simultaneously from the very beginning. And that's basically the bottom line. So so this basically goes through some of like the details of how we're going to integrate into the actual recruitment model of having. We basically want to bring everything into the recruitment. Like that's the centerpiece of the super system is the recruitment. So the recruitment is boiling the 6 down into 1. If we focus on a new recruit and we can get a new recruit educated, engaged, and fully empowered, then we should be able to easily get an existing member fully engaged and empowered simultaneously. Okay. So then the other component of doing this process of building and engaging everything into the super system is starting backwards. So the idea is that if we start backwards, like if we don't pay people, nothing else is going to work out, right? If we can get our payroll set up where we can do our payroll every single week, right? If not even twice a week or even daily, right? Our whole engagement of the workers will increase because people will like to get paid, and they like to get paid on time. So they have an expectation of getting paid well and being paid on time. It's going to help us, right? Especially if we're giving them the full equivalency of their tokens, their equity, and all the value that they should be getting regularly. It will increase the engagement and involvement in the organization. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the payroll, I think, is really, really important. Even though it's the 6th level, the idea is if we start at the end and we work our way up to the beginning, like let's say we start with recruitment. We're going to be recruiting new people into a system that's dysfunctional, right? But if we start with number 6 and we get our payroll organized and perfected, and then go down the list, by the time that we get to recruitment, we'll be ready to recruit people, right? So that's sort of the idea here, is to start. So basically you make the recruitment the last part, and that you would start with the payroll first to get the payroll organized and work backwards. So do you understand like the concept of working backwards? First we do the payroll, then we make sure all of our training and team development is organized, then we make sure all of our worker coordination is organized, then we get our onboarding and scheduling set up, then we do our budgeting, then we implement our recruitment. So if we implement backwards, by the time we get to the recruitment, it'll all be ready for the new recruit. But if we recruit new people now, it's not going to be very organized, and it's going to be a big mess. Okay, that makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then first thing I did was starting with payroll. So I started going through the entire payroll, and then I started going through training, right? And then I started going through the assignments, right? And then I got to onboarding, and that's as far as I got. Okay? So you know, I've started the process of rebuilding all of these systems, and I also have been working on budgeting, right? So the budget, it's specifically for the new tabulation systems. So we did get started on the budget some as well. The recruitment, I was working on the recruitment before, but then I stopped because of this, right? So I was like, you know what? I could keep working on the recruitment, but it's not going to help until we get the rest of this done, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, so when I can show you how the onboarding, it's like when we onboard a new worker, what do we need to make sure that they are fully integrated, which includes, you know, everything, you know, the POP intake, the buddy team doc, minimum criteria, strategy questionnaire, scheduling, communications, top 10 training videos, main doc and other documentations verification. Like, I don't even think we've done the basic POP and main buddy team minimum criteria verification yet. Like, that's out of control, that we haven't even done that yet, right? Like, that needs to be on the hard soft stop. That needs to be a priority. You know, have we done the main buddy team criteria for the new recruits yet? If we haven't, that's a huge problem. Okay?
Okay. So which step, the first step is it to detail intake structure? Is that the first one?
We're going to start with payroll. So the idea, the first thing here is to start with the payroll. We're already integrating the new payroll models where we have tier A workers, tier B workers, tier C workers, and tier D workers. So tier D workers need to focus almost only on client work, or as we would say, 57% client work, right? And then tier C can do 28.5% client work and 8.5% internal ops, billable internal ops, right? And then tier B workers can basically do as much internal ops work as they want to. And tier A workers have no upfront pay or have their own payroll, separate payroll, right? Like myself. So we're starting with that. But then the most important thing in terms of simplifying the payroll is that we want to know what each individual has to do to get paid. And so I've created a whole new steps and systems, a 10-step process that is going to completely transform the ability for people to get paid, right? So the way to think about it is that there's 3 components, and then there's verification, right? So there's the A, B, and C. one is the pay and hours reporting invoice, and then there's the payroll details invoice, and the double check and triple check details. So those are the three components. But the idea is that the worker can do all three of those, and the worker should be trained on how to do all three of those, and then you can verify all three of these simultaneously, right? And then final verification, and then treasurer sends funds, right? So those are the three steps. So A, B, and C verification can all happen at the same time by the same person, or you can get it signed off each step separately. So it makes sense that they would sign off each step separately unless they know that they did step A correctly. Otherwise, they would have to redo step B and step C anyways, right? But if they basically they're confident, they know it's all perfect, you can technically have all the oversight verification, the normal verification, the hours verification all done simultaneously, and then it empowers the worker to do all of the work for the payroll themselves, and them doing this work would not can be considered asking people for money. After they do it and they input it, they're still not paid and they're still begging for money, then they would be considered to get paid last. Okay, so basically it's trying to simplify the payroll process and empower each worker, and we're going to be creating a spreadsheet that's going to lay out all of the minimum information, the minimum criteria that would be required for a worker to input all their information, have it verified, and to get paid separately from everyone else. So basically the idea is if a worker goes to all the trouble to do their own payroll, that then we can pay them, and we could pay them on a weekly or even daily basis as long as all the policies are followed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So this is trying to simplify our payroll model so that instead of payroll being overseen by a payroll manager or a payroll worker, that each individual worker oversees their own payroll, inputs their own payroll, and then can get paid regardless of whether any of the other workers are getting paid. As long as they're getting it verified. And obviously, so minimum you need you're going to need 3 people, right? You're going to need someone to actually do the work, to input all the information into the payroll. Then you need a separate person to verify, which obviously would need to be someone who understands payroll and can verify it. And then you would need a final verification and the treasurer to send out the funds. So you're going to need 3 people in order to get someone paid. But I think it's more it'll help simplify, and also so everything can stay exactly the same. Like if a worker doesn't want to lift a finger, the payroll system doesn't change. If a worker wants to go out of their way to make sure that all of their payroll information is done correctly and verified quickly, then they can get paid faster than everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And this should help us get into weekly and even twice a week, if not even daily payroll models, so that people want to input their pay for the day, they could get paid boom immediately, as long as it's verified. Okay. Cool. So
okay. So is it still going to be like if you are a payroll worker, you are going to be paid last?
Payroll worker gonna get paid last? Yes. Yeah. Payroll workers get paid last. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing is that that basically we want to create a way for people like doing steps A, B, and C that wouldn't constitute requesting funds, so that the worker, the idea is that the payroll worker, it should be a lot easier to get paid because there'd be a lot less work to do, because each of the workers should be stepping up and doing more work themselves, right? And the same thing would be true with the invoice tabulation for the budget. For the invoice tabulation, we want each of the workers to input their own client work into their own spreadsheet, so that all the information that we need to do the invoice tabulations already completed before we do the invoice tabulation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I remember like when Nelly was there, she was really insisting on everyone to make like number A, pay and hours reporting on or invoice. You just by the end of the week, it is your responsibility to make sure you log in your hours on the payroll. so that whoever going to do the verification is going to be easier for that person to check on that. If you don't put that, then it is you who is going to wait there until those who put their hours on time. We just go with those people.
Yeah, and we're even gonna simplify it further though. We're gonna make it even simpler, where we're going to have the simplest possible is that each worker can independently input their own information. For example, a simple spreadsheet. So, or even a form, that goes into a spreadsheet, right? So the idea is that as long as they fill out all the information correctly for themselves and it's verified correctly for themselves, we can pay that worker independently from any of the other workers. So one of the things that's complicated about the pay in hours tracking spreadsheet and the payroll verification spreadsheet is that there's so many workers on it and there's so much going on. When a new worker goes into that spreadsheet, it can be very daunting and confusing. They don't want to touch anything because they don't get it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if we can simplify it just for each individual worker, and they can just fill out a single spreadsheet or even a single form, and then that is enough information to verify their work, right? What gets complicated with payroll isn't individual workers. What gets complicated is that we have to verify all 10, 20 workers simultaneously at the same time. That's where it starts getting complicated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to simplify it to be able to empower each worker, so maybe they don't need to go to the pay and hours reporting, but they could do their own spreadsheet and just report their own hours, or fill out a form and report their own hours, and then we can just put it into the pay and hours reporting. But if it's verifiable and it's all correct, then it's good to go. Okay, and then we can get them paid quickly. So people who want to get paid weekly, right? It should be easier to verify their information. It should be faster because it's every week. But it might not make sense for them to deal with the normal payroll process, because the normal payroll process seems to only be happening twice a month at most, and behind schedule, right? But if someone doesn't want to go to the trouble to do their own payroll, then they don't have to, and it will be done for them, right? There's no requirement that you have to input your own pay and hours into the reporting spreadsheet for your pay and hours, because we still have a legal responsibility to pay people for the work they did based on their work report, okay?
Yeah.
So as long as they fill out their work report, we'll pay them. But if they want to get paid on time, or if they want to get paid more regularly, they have to step up and actually input their own hours directly, right? And so if we empower each worker, and this is where the next section comes in, is the training. So in the trainings, the goal is we want to make sure that all workers are trained on all staff systems so they can be self-regulating and be fully empowered, right? Self-regulating and empowered, right? So if they understand the overall processes and interconnections of each of these 6 staff systems, it'll greatly make the whole model more efficient. And so we can reduce the amount of time we spend on payroll, reduce the amount of time we spend on recruitment, reduce the amount of time we spend on even the training, right? So the key training is that we're going to want to do an introductory training on all 6 of the staff systems together. So this would be like basically the super system, right? So we just do one single super system training. Then we want to make sure they understand the minimum on the payroll, the minimum for output bonuses, tokens, and equity. We want to train them the simple budget proposals, the minimum criteria for their budgets, and also advanced budget proposals so they can empower themselves on different levels of back pay. We need to be training on our basic methods of communication methods, organizing methods, etc. The top 10 training videos we need to get organized and set up. Team development, so they understand how to do team development, all these other components of training. So this training, the number 5, is going to be really important for existing workers, as well as it's going to be really important for our new recruits. So this is going to be a huge top priority, is getting all of our training set up And I think this is really the next step. So after we get our payroll system set up and updated, the next step is really, evolving our training. And then we're gonna and then we're already doing a lot of our worker coordination and doing the hard stop, soft stop. But it's gonna go beyond that. We need to interconnect all this together so that we're training on weekly check-ins, self-driven responsibilities, so that and the badges, to get the badges moving forward, so that everybody understands how management works, co-chairs work, and the accountability functions, so that it's actually moving forward. Okay.
Yeah.
So the focus needs to be on self-organizing and working together as a team, including how we prioritize, right? Organize our goals, and also distributing equity. Because currently, right now, our main sessions is where equity is distributed, but because we don't do team equity, there's no benefit for people actually to come to main sessions, right? We want people to come to main sessions because it'll be a benefit, because they're actually going to get paid more money during payroll, right? And that's where we have to connect the payroll to the team equity, to the assignment and the worker coordination and the trainings, where our payroll needs to be also distributing tokens, equity, and value based on engagement. So if we don't distribute that at every payroll, then there's no direct reason why people should show up at main sessions, or people should actually go above and beyond their assignments, because we're not even giving out any value, so then people don't even know about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So all of these things need to interconnect together. So this might be, we might need to do more self-reporting on, for example, attendance at main sessions. So main session attendance results in direct equity and token distributions at payroll, right? So that would be really cool, Oh, wow, I'm going to get all these tokens and extra money and value and bonus for going and attending main sessions. I want to attend a main session and get organized as a team, right? If we don't tell people and we don't actually do it, then they're not going to show up. This is how everything's interconnected, right? We also might want to do self-reporting on production, output, deliverables, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And this all comes into the training, right? We have to train people on how to do these things. Otherwise, they're not going to know about it. All right. So, anyways, I think we went through enough of this right now.
Yeah.
But so the way to think about it is that, we have new payroll systems. We've got new training systems. We've got new worker coordination systems. We've got new onboarding systems. We've got new budgeting and invoice tabulation systems. And it's all related to the super system, right? And it's all going to interconnect into this one single super system, and it's all going to be based on the training for the new recruits, the onboarding for the new recruits, and interconnecting the invoicing and the payroll and the tokens and the equity, all just integrating it all together. Okay?
Okay.
So we want to do one full integration system, and so it's going to be about training how to do this, then also creating the training videos, creating the step-by-step systems and processes so that we can train other people on how to do this, and eventually we'll train everybody on how to do everything. So the goal of the super system is that we narrow down the most essential functional components of staff and staff work, and then we're going to be training everybody on how to do all of them. Right? Some people are going to be able to do it better than others, but the idea is that everyone should understand how to get paid for payroll, not just the payroll coordinator. Everyone should. It should be so simple that everyone knows how to get paid with payroll, and they can just do the payroll, get it inputted. If they want to get bonuses and they want to get equity and they want to get production and output bonuses, and get more tokens, they can do self-reporting on that, and then they can get paid. If they don't want that, then they don't have to do it. Right? But let's work out the minimal system so that everybody can basically get themselves paid effectively and efficiently.
So when are we going to implement that?
All of this can be implemented immediately. Like, so the work that needs to get done is just like setting up all the systems. So this is going to be changing our payroll processes. They're going to be changing our training processes, and we're going to need to be building training videos on all of this, right? Another clear thing that we can do for the payroll is that we could, implement a token-based payroll, and use like we already use, for example, in our recruitment and in our onboarding, right? We do jurisdictions, right? But then we don't use the jurisdictions in the payroll, so we can immediately start using jurisdictions in payroll so that everyone gets their minimum jurisdiction pay as a token. Also, we can do back pay tokens. So if we can train people on how to calculate their own back pay, right? Back pay overtime, right? Overtime. So if people don't want their overtime pay, that's perfectly fine. But if you want your overtime pay, then let's get people trained on how to calculate their overtime pay. They want to do that, okay? And then we can start giving people back pay tokens. So all we need to know is how much tokens to distribute to people, and then we can just start doing it. I mean, we have the tokens ready, we have everything ready to go. It's just a matter of actually doing it. So there is some setup that needs to be done, but overall, we just need to train people on how to do it. And if we train people how to do it themselves, then they can choose to do it or not do it. And then if they choose to do it, they can get more value. If they don't do it, they don't get the value. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. A question. Does that mean everyone need to have their own spreadsheet?
Yes. Everyone. So if we go back to, no. Everyone has their own work report, right? So everyone gets their own work report. That's all that's required, right? So if people want to do their own reporting for payroll, then they may want to do their own spreadsheet, but I would call it an invoice, right? So if someone wants to get paid, they would create an invoice with their pay and hours, their payroll details, and then they would need to go through the triple check to make sure everything's included in the invoice. So we're going to have a template for that invoice, which will include the fees and everything, but just for one person instead of everybody on the payroll verification. So it's simple. So they can just look at it and it'll just be for them. They input all the information, and then it'll be in the same format as the payroll verification. So then it's just copying and pasting it into the payroll verification. It'll take 10 seconds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Although, but why can't we just use the same payroll?
We can.
But people log their own hours.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So the policy.
And also they can track their overtime using the same, just like we have a spreadsheet for overtime.
We have a spreadsheet for overtime. Yes,
they have to track their own overtime there.
Yes. So the policy. Okay, so with this new model, people will be able to put everything on one spreadsheet for themselves, so their own invoice, all of their back pay, all of their overtime, all of their output and production, everything would go on a single spreadsheet. Whereas the way we're doing it, everything goes on separate spreadsheets, right? So it's a little more confusing for each individual because they would have to go to a bunch of separate spreadsheets and put it all in. So the policy is very simple. It's that anyone can input their own information to get paid, and that just needs to be verified. And basically what we need is an invoice, or we need basically a spreadsheet that documents all the information, that it's correct and it's verified, right? That doesn't mean that they can't use the existing spreadsheets like you just said. As long as we give them access to all the spreadsheets and they can input their own information into those spreadsheets and it's verified, perfect, right? But the minimum criteria for the policy is that we just need the information, and that information can be on their own spreadsheet or on their own invoice. So as long as all the information is present and it's verifiable and it's checked off, they get paid. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for us, it will be simpler if everyone does it on the same spreadsheet, but for the worker, it's just not necessary for meeting the policy. And then it's also in terms of efficiency and people getting paid, if we can just verify one worker at a time and be able to get them paid, especially for weekly, daily, twice a week payroll for people who want to get paid more often, it may be doable without having to wait to do everybody's all at the same time. So we'll just have to see how it works out. But the key is to empower the workers. All right?
Yeah, it will work out. And also, it's going to allow us not to focus more on payroll. It's going to be flexible so that we can work on other priorities that we have.
Yes, exactly. So that is the goal, is to make it more flexible and have it be, hopefully less time on payroll. But there's no guarantee it's going to give us less time on payroll. It might just be the same amount of time on payroll, but it just might be more clear on each individual worker's payroll.
I think it's going to be more clear, when you just put it at when you put your hours, make sure you put the right thing so that whoever going to verify it is going to be easy. Instead of someone now tracking the hours, this group of tracking the hours that are going to do the verification instead of that, you can see that this time is already moved out. We always have everyone is given 2 hours or 1 hour to do their own thing at their own time. That is the best time that they can do for that.
Exactly. Yes. And then when we go on to the invoice tabulation, right, that every worker can input their own client work and billable work into their own spreadsheet, right? So this is the invoice tabulation is going to be different from the payroll. The payroll, you just do your work report. So there's no requirement to have each worker with their own spreadsheet. Only workers who choose to create their own spreadsheet will have the template for that. But for this, we're going to have a template for our invoice tabulation, and then every single worker will have their own invoice, client work, and billable work spreadsheet, and then that will be, filled out per worker for the invoice tabulation. Okay? And this needs to be done. This is a top priority and needs to be done right away. And is due by the quarter moon. So we need the list of everybody's client work by the quarter moon.
Yeah. Albina sent a text
earlier.
On Skype to remind Aline on the doc that we cannot access. She was done with the gas, so she can link, but cool. She did not respond.
Well, hopefully we'll hear from Eileen, but we shouldn't be expecting anything from Eileen.
Okay, so then we can just create another doc then. If that is not going to work, she's not going to respond, we just have to create another one.
Yes. So anyways, as we integrate all of these systems together, we should be able to start seeing where things overlap so that we can duplicate or we can multiplicate the work. So when you do, for example, your invoicing tabulation and your billable work can connect to your payroll potentially, and can connect to your bonuses, and can connect to your the training. So it's all interconnected. So hopefully this will get simpler, and then we'll find places where things don't connect and are too complicated, and then we can delete them and remove them, right? So as we can start finding areas that we don't want to have, we want to simplify and downsize to make sure that the super system is as clear and simple as possible, but also simultaneously having, there's always add-ons, right? So for example, we want to make sure that everyone knows that they can do their own invoice. So we empower the individual to do their own invoice with their own payment, and can get verified separately from the overall payroll process. If they choose to do that, right? That's up to them. But then we have the minimum basics minimum basic information of what needs to be included, and then there's like, you know, dozens of add-ons and self-reporting. You know, so they could add on the self-reporting for equity and production, output and deliverables and overtime and back pay and all these things, but we're not gonna explain that to them in this super system. That will be explained in the more detailed models for when they learn more. Like, let's first just get them the basic information of what they need to get paid, right? And then if they choose to, they can learn about all the add-ons and self-reporting and getting more, getting tokens and getting all the additional value, okay?
Yeah.
So that we can separate out the most essential, you know, focal points for actually being functional, and then they can add on if they want, if they choose to. Cool. All right, so I think we are done here.
Yeah.
Any other question on the staff system setup?
Oh, a lot of questions just coming slowly, you know. Cannot ask all of them.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, it's gonna take a while to. It's in some ways it's kind of relearning, but at the same time, it's really everything's exactly the same. It's just simplifying, and getting to those core essential components that we're going to train everybody on and build the super system out of. So as we understand each of these, you know, the training is going to be a key focus, and we're going to be creating training videos on them. But we kind of have to create the models and the templates and all the information and before we can actually do the training. But we will be doing new trainings on all of these, and then we'll be doing training on the super system itself. But before we can do training on the super system, we actually have to create each of the 6 you know, primary systems for the staff systems, the top 6 staff systems. And then we can integrate them all together for the super system. But I think this is going to help us tremendously, especially as if we want to grow and want to scale and get bigger and actually bring in a bigger budget. This is going to be what's going to do that, you know. And then we need to prioritize and assign, you know, responsibilities related to our client coordination and our client invoicing. You know, that has to be a top priority. Like, client invoicing has to be a hard stop, soft stop priority. Because if we don't invoice the client, then we don't get paid.
That's true.
Yeah. Coolio. All right, so I think we're pretty good here. We'll continue to go over all of this, but it's really cool though, because, you know, this is the first time we've had a discussion where we've covered, you know, payroll, training, worker coordination, onboarding, budgeting, and recruitment all in the same discussion, you know. And the reason why we are able to do this is because of the staff super system, and because we're simplifying it and interconnecting it all together, and it should be really clear. Make sure it's step by step, process by process.
Oh, another question about the payroll. Is it allowed to use just overall payroll, like for someone to track their hours, they just put it there, then maybe he or she can notify, or we just check who put their hours there, we verified it instead of making that own spreadsheet. Is that possible?
Yes, of course. So, so they would just need to input it into the thing, get it verified, but then it would need to go into the payroll verification and doing double, triple verification, right, before it can have final verification and actually get someone paid.
Yeah, I think that is going to be. I think the good thing is that we just have to, when they track their hours, they have to put on both on the spreadsheet of tracking and pay sheet. Then again, they have to put their on payroll the amount. Then it's going to be easier. Well, I just go, if I verified, I check verification for their house, and I go to payroll, I verify the amount they put there, and that's gonna be easy.
Yeah.
I think that will work best.
So let's just keep doing it. But for me, the most important is the minimum criteria and the minimum policy. Like the policy itself is the most important, right? So we're gonna have a clear payroll policy. All right. So we need to create a clear payroll policy. For me, basically, what that would be is, a simple list of criteria required in an invoice or spreadsheet in order to get paid. Right? So that would be what we want. Is like, what is the information that needs to be done? Yes, you can input that information into the existing payroll spreadsheets, but we want to simplify it to the minimum required. Okay?
Yeah.
Because in those spreadsheets, there's always going to be more information than might necessarily be needed, especially for any particular worker, right? And then we want to create some sort of template or info sheet about that, right? Cool. Anyways, I'm sure we can do it, and it'll come together.
I think it's not going to be hard when we train someone. It's good, when it comes to money, people are always serious. They can do it. We just train them. You do this. You put your own fee. You put all this. You follow all these steps. It's not hard. It's just something like you copy paste. When you already put the amount on the spreadsheet or tracking sheet, you will know exactly the amount that you work for that week, for 2 weeks, or if it is 2 weeks or for that week. You transfer it to payroll. You also, when you put it there, you will know exactly if you have a fee or not. Then whoever going to verify is going to be simple. You just check this person, the hours that are in, that person work for that week. If the right hours that put there is right, if the amount that putting on the payroll is right, it's going to be easier. I know people, they will do it because they want to get paid.
Yes, exactly. So we want to have a clear policy and make sure that it's really simple and what the criteria is, and make sure they know what the minimum is that they need. And then we want to have a training video on how to use the existing payroll spreadsheets by just inputting your own information. Okay?
Okay.
So we want to basically do both. Here's how you can do it the simplest, minimal possible. This is the policy, right? But we already have it set up for you so that you can just input the information directly onto the existing payroll, processes and spreadsheets, so that no one has to do it for you, right?
Yeah.
And that should help make it go much quicker, for sure, and be much more efficient.
It's going to be easier.
Yeah. But most importantly, what we want to do is we want to interconnect everything together so that the payroll is connected into the recruitment, so that when we're recruiting people and we're training them and we're onboarding them, we're already onboarding and training them into the payroll system itself, so that the moment that they get involved, they're already been powered into the payroll, right? So that it's not a separate thing, right? And then we want to integrate the payroll into their equity models and integrate the payroll into their training and their worker coordination, so that when they're doing the invoice tabulation, they're tabulating the priorities for their worker coordination based on the client work and the internal ops, the billable work, right? So that everything is integrated, right? So the payroll is integrated with the recruitments, integrated with the budgeting and the onboarding and the assignments and the training, so that everything is connected together, which will make it all much, much stronger. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it'll be really, really cool. So I
think we can also apply the same to budget.
Yeah, well, the budget, definitely, because the budget, and specifically with the invoice tabulation, they're going to be doing their own invoice tabulation, right? Getting their own invoice, their own tabulation set up, and then the tabulation will be in the correct format so that it can be quickly tabulated and then put into what's called the post-tab. So there's going to be a pre-tabulation, there's going to be the actual tabulation calculations, and there's going to be the post-tabulation, and then everyone will know like the outcome of the tabulation. We haven't gone over this yet, we will, But the outcome of the tabulation will be that every single worker knows exactly their net total, you know, revenue for the business or loss for the business, right? So they understand that they're either bringing in money or they're losing money for the umbrella business, and that'll be the basis for their ranking. Okay?
Okay. So on tabulation, even though you're not there, I'm just asking by the way question. Can I also, if someone tracking, can they track the hours for specific day? If, for example, I work today on Plasmo and next tomorrow again work on Plasmo, when I track, I have to track even the date I work, or just I count my hours that I work for that Plasmo.
Well, in your work report, you need to put the date. But in the invoice tabulation on your payroll, we just need the total number of hours.
Okay.
Yeah, but in your work report, it is required when we're verifying someone's work, you got to have the date to have the verification, right? Otherwise, it's not verifiable, right? So if someone puts, for example, I worked during the week for 5% or 10% time, it's not verifiable. We're still going to pay them, as long as we all agree to pay them, but they're not going to get the value, right? There's no value. We can't really charge, for example, the client. Like, how do we charge the client if there's no way for us to verify that the person even did the work,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very important. So for us, anytime someone doesn't put a date, that means that if we pay them, we're losing money in relationship to our ability to bill the client, right? Because we can't bill the client for money that's not verifiable. So yeah, the date is very important for the verification, but for the actual tabulation, you're going to be using dates at all, right? All we care about for the tabulation will be very simple. Again, we're not going through it now, but it's going to be very simple spreadsheet. Here's the name of the client. Here's the number of hours that I worked. Here's the money per hour, the 3x, and that's pretty much it. That's all we need. We just need basically the name of the client, how many hours they worked during the month for that client, and what was the value of that work. Okay?
Are we also using 3x on individuals?
For pre-tabulation and tabulation, we use 3x. For post-tabulation, we're going to be using, I believe, 1.5x.
Yeah, I think for individual, the 1.5, then for super team, I don't know whether is it for super team that we are going to use? 3x. It's always global, I don't know.
Well, the key is that let's not go through this now. Let's schedule a time and prioritize the tabulation, because we have all these new tabulation systems that we need to implement immediately, right? Because it's coming up here real quick. But basically, the tabulation is going to be very simple. There's going to be a pre-tabulation, which is getting the information on the client work. Once we get the information on the client work, we do a 3x multiplication to bring in the money for the client, right? Then it gets split up into internal ops and actual client, pool, like the actual work that we do on the client work, as opposed to the client income. So the 3x is just for the client income, and then there's the client work. That will be in the internal ops. That'll be 1.5x for both of those. Right? So the 1.5x for internal ops and the 1.5x for the client work adds up to 3x for the overall client income, and then the 0.5x to make it 3.5 goes to the membership and in admin fees and other costs. Right? So overall, it's going to be about 1.5x for the actual worker. Anyway, we'll work it all out. In the end, it's just everyone's just going to have the total amount of money they're bringing in times the total amount of money that they spent, and they were paid, and that will equal their total value in the budget. All right?
Yeah.
Because it'll be their net. They're either going to have a net loss for the umbrella business, or they're going to be a net revenue for the business, right? That's the goal, is to have a net revenue so that it increases your ranking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And the
that.
value of the internal ops work and the value of the client work is going to be the same. There's not going to be any difference between the value of the client work and the internal ops work. It'll be the same value.
Okay. Well, thank for a good training. I think I learn a lot from this.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more to be done. So here we have invoice tabulation, minimum payroll criteria, and this is going to be a doc/spreadsheet, and then also a training video, and then this invoice tabulation is a spreadsheet for each worker. And then we also need to do lots of training videos and planning for our training, and then the rest of the stuff. Alright, so anyways, I think we're good for now.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. We just try.
So the next thing we were thinking about doing is checking in on the budget really quick. So it's due on the quarter moon. Has anyone gone in and done the voting tabulation yet to see if we have enough votes?
And Albina was telling me checking on that. I think then electricity goes up before I did not also get back to her. I think she did not get enough vote. That is why she didn't tabulate.
Okay, well, if we don't have enough votes, then we need to send out the voting form again. Basically, the reason why people might want to vote is because if people don't vote and we don't have a decision on the budget, then everyone's on hard stop starting at the quarter moon. I don't think people want to be on budget hard stop. Budget hard stop is not good.
Yeah. I think we will send the form again. I'll just check.
Okay, yeah, just send it out again. That'll be good.
Send out again.
All right. So yeah, I'm gonna take an hour break. I'll be back for Cobalt.
Okay, let's take a break, babe.
Are you planning on coming back for Cobalt?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good work. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.